Hi, guys, and welcome to the final edition of Foods to Become Friends With. And today we're going to talk about seeds and nuts. And I couldn't find a place for a couple of foods I wanted to introduce you to, so there'll just be a small miscellaneous section at the end. So, the first food that I wanted to talk to you about is chia seed. So, you may have seen chia seed in the grocery store. Maybe even you remember or you've heard of such a thing called a chia pet, which was kind of a popular thing back in the 80s and 90s. But chia is really being recognized more and more as an extremely healthy food. It's listed as, quote unquote, superfood. And it's not very expensive to get, and it's very versatile, and it's very easy to use. But the biggest thing is that it's extremely nutritious. And so I have some of the facts up there about how a 2 tablespoon serving of chia gets you 8 grams of fiber, which is a lot. It also gets you 4 grams of protein, which just in 2 small spoonfuls is quite a bit. But maybe the biggest reason why somebody on a plant-based diet would look for chia is the inclusion of omega-3 fatty acids. And those are really important for brain functioning and can be relatively difficult to find in plant-based sources. Usually the best known sources of omega-3s are in fish and sometimes eggs. But if for whatever reason you'd like to avoid those foods, then you can get the omega-3 through plant sources like chia. And additionally, it's a really good source of iron and calcium. And we're going to see that actually with a lot of these seeds, the nutritional makeup of them is very similar, and they all have good protein and iron and calcium. So I think that it's important to recognize that normally, we think about calcium as something that's coming from dairy. That's the association that most people have in their minds. But there are tons of really great plant sources of calcium. And when you ingest calcium from a plant source, it's coming with other nutrients that are packaged with it that you can't find in dairy. And it increases your body's ability to actually absorb the calcium that you're drinking. And so some of the countries that actually have the highest calcium or dairy intakes, you would think that they would have the best bone health, but that's not the case at all. In fact, some countries like India that have very low dairy and meat intake, which are majority vegetarian countries, they actually have fairly good bone health. And in the United States and in Western Europe, which consumes a lot of dairy, bone health is actually quite poor. So something else is going on there, and what we think is happening is that people drink too much milk and consume too much dairy without getting some of these other foods that are going to allow their bodies to absorb that. But if you're getting your calcium and your iron directly from a plant source, then you don't have to worry about that as much. So 2 tablespoons of chia gives you about 10% of your entire daily value for iron and calcium. So you can really see that it's a powerhouse food. It's something that's really, you get a lot of bang for your buck. You get a lot out of a little. So how would you use this? Well, first of all, it's generally not advisable to eat these raw. You can. It might upset your digestion a little bit. The idea is that you want to allow the chia seed to soak in some kind of a liquid before, and that helps to loosen it up, and it creates sort of a gelatinous coating around it. And so my favorite use of chia seed is in chia pudding, and this is super easy dessert that you can make that's very nutritious and inexpensive. So you might consider making some of this before you come to Dawson, or making up a big batch of this in the fridge and then just putting a little bit into your lunch as you go out. And then you won't have to purchase expensive sugary desserts after your lunch. So all you have to do is take, depending on how much you want, of course, take a little bit of chia seeds and mix it with some non-dairy milk, almond milk, coconut milk, oat milk, soy milk, etc. And then just add in whatever you want. I like to add like frozen fruits, like frozen blueberries or whatever I have in the freezer. You could also add in fresh things, strawberries, peaches, etc. You could add in cacao, which is also another superfood, great source of antioxidants and iron, either in cacao nib form or in cacao powder. You could add in coconut. You could maybe add in some sweetener like maple syrup, and you can also add in some of the nuts that I'm going to talk about later. So that's really the easiest way to use chia. But one other really cool thing about chia is that you can use it as an egg substitute. So if you want to reduce or eliminate your egg consumption, then this chia and the next one we're going to talk about, flax, can both substitute for eggs in recipes. And all you have to do is take, in this case, 1 tablespoon of chia, put it in with 3 tablespoons of water and wait until 5 minutes, and then it'll become a little bit like a jelly or a gel, and that gives you a replacement of 1 egg. So you can take a look at that in how you might want to substitute for some baking or some other recipes that you might have that include an egg. Try using a chia egg instead. And flax, like I said, one of the great uses of flax is that you can use it to replace an egg, same directions as the chia egg. And again, a lot of the same nutritional makeup as chia, good source of protein, iron, and calcium. Flax also contains what's known as good fats, and some of these other seeds we're going to talk about have these as well. Again, you'd probably have to study nutrition more. I just know that nutritionists classify things into good fats and bad fats. Bad fats are like trans fats, really bad for your body. But there are healthy fats that your body needs, that your brain needs to function. And so flax contains a good source of what are called ALA fats, flat fats. So with flax, you can either use it to make an egg and substitute in recipes, or you can grind them up. You can get them whole, and then you can grind them in a Magic Bullet blender or in some other type of a blender, and you can use that to sprinkle on top of various dishes. I like to sprinkle it on my salads, for example. You can also use it in smoothies as well if you want to add more nutrition to your smoothie. And flax, you'll find it has a very nice, rich, kind of nutty flavor to it. So a lot of people enjoy the flavor of flax, and I think it helps to enhance my enjoyment of whatever food that I'm making it with. That I really like sort of the background notes of like, that tastes like, it tastes kind of like a forest, but in a good way. So you can check flax out too. Again, relatively inexpensive to get a big package for $5, and it can last you for a really long time. The next seeds that I wanted to mention are pumpkin and sunflower. Maybe you're more familiar with them already. You see in the picture there's whole pumpkin seeds with the shell on, whole sunflower seeds, with the shell on, and then pumpkin seeds are in the middle, and then shelled sunflower seeds are there on the right. And these are also nutritional powerhouses. You can get a lot from a very small amount of these foods. They're great sources of basically many different types of vitamins and minerals, including vitamin E, fiber, protein, magnesium. So again, notice how all of the foods that I've been mentioning so far are good sources of protein. So if you want to have a plant-based diet, you're not just eating tofu as your protein, although that's a great start. You don't have to limit it to that. There's so many other sources of protein that we've discussed in various other forms. Hemp as well. And I should also include hemp seeds here, but I kind of talked about that in the last one. And so how do you use pumpkin and sunflower seeds? Well, you may have just eaten them directly out of the bag, in which case that's fine. Maybe you could also consider adding them on your breakfast foods, maybe on your cereal or your oats. Or my favorite way of using pumpkin and sunflower seeds is to take the shelled version of them and put it into just a regular skillet, non-stick if you have it. You don't need to put any oil, because as you heat up the seed, some natural oil is going to come out. So they won't stick or they won't burn if you keep an eye on them. So you can coat the bottom of your skillet with these seeds and just kind of stand by it. Can take 7 to 10 minutes. I would say medium-high heat. You don't want it on the highest, but you also want it to have some kick to the heat. And it usually takes about 7 to 10 minutes, and you'll notice that it begins to get a little bit brown, a little bit roasted on the outside, and I and my family absolutely love the taste of those roasted seeds. I'm not such a fan of the raw versions of these, but give me them toasted and I can just eat and eat and eat, and there's no stopping me. And I feel good eating them because I know that they're so nutritious. And so you could use those roasted seeds as a topping for salads again, or you might add it onto some other salty dishes, like maybe the coconut curry that you made in the last cooking class. or if you're making like a chili or something like that. Or even if you make the tofu with the nutritional yeast, try adding it to that and see how you like it. But again, these are just like tiny ways that you can use to improve your diet and your nutrition that actually don't cost very much. Or, you know, there's a little initial investment at first, kind of like with the spices, but over time, you know, it lasts you a long time and you get a lot out of it. Then the next seed is a sesame seed. You're probably familiar with sesame seed as well. I didn't realize just how amazing sesame seeds are until my wife was pregnant. And we were talking with her midwife and told her that we were vegetarian. And the midwife said, oh, you know, make sure that you get lots of sesame seeds. And I was like, why? And then I looked into the nutrition. I'm like, well, there's why. They are incredible sources of calcium and iron. Just 1 tablespoon, really not that much. That alone gets you 8% of your recommended daily allowance for calcium and 7% for iron. So if you're somebody who is like iron deficient, if you have anemia issues, or if you're a woman during your period, then it's really important to get good sources of iron. And sesame seeds are really one of the easiest, simplest ways to do that. There's also a fair amount of protein in 1 tablespoon of sesame seeds, plus it has these healthy fats that I was mentioning before. And in this case, the healthy fats that it contains are polyunsaturated fatty acids and omega-6. So omega-3 and omega-6 are these ones that you usually get from fish, but you can do that from sesame seeds as well. And sesame seeds have been demonstrated to actually lower cholesterol levels in humans, as well as lowering blood pressure. So if you have a family member who's suffering from those ailments, then you might suggest to incorporate sesame seeds more into your diet. One of the ways that I like to consume sesame seeds is actually through what's called tahini, which is actually sesame butter. So if you grind up sesame seeds, just like if you grind up peanuts or you grind up almond, you'll get peanut butter or almond butter. If you grind up sesame seeds, then you're going to get tahini. And you see an example of what tahini looks like up there on the right. And if you eat straight up tahini, it's actually pretty dry, and it can kind of give your mouth a bit of a chalky taste. So I wouldn't recommend just, you know, scooping tahini right out of the container like some of us do with peanut butter, you know, guilty as charged there sometimes. But tahini is really great to add into, if you're making a smoothie or something like that, you can put a spoonful of it and it gets mixed up and it adds a really nice sesame flavor. Or one of my favorite ways, I'm having toast in the morning and I'll take a little bit of tahini and I'll spread it on the toast just like I would with peanut or almond butter. And then if you add on honey, oh my God, like I could just eat that every single day. It's so good. And, you know, we could get into a debate about whether honey is vegan or not. There's some rather strong viewpoints on that, but, you know, you can make the decision for yourself. Or another way that you could use tahini is in salad dressing. And personally, I think that actually you should never have to buy salad dressing, a commercial salad dressing. Usually they're filled with like not so good oils and sugar, and it's not so expensive, and it's really easy actually to make on your own. So I like to use tahini in salad dressing, where I'll mix olive oil and then some vinegar, like either balsamic or apple cider vinegar, and then some lemon, and then put some tahini in there, and really good. You can add on some maple syrup if you want to have a little bit of a sweetness, but you can make up a large amount of salad dressing for way less than you would pay if you would get a store-bought salad dressing. Plus, it's going to be way healthier for you because you're going to be putting in things like olive oil, which is super healthy, and also tahini. And then if you wanted to consume the sesame seeds in their raw form, then you could add it into the mix that I described on the last slide. So pumpkin, sunflower, and sesame seeds all together, and just do the same thing. Just let them all roast there for 7 to 10 minutes and you'll have a great topping. And you can make up a big batch of that all at once, and then you can use it very slowly over time. So in terms of nuts, and I think, you know, seeds and nuts are like pretty closely related, so that's why I kind of include them both here. But there are a couple nuts that I think are really worth mentioning in terms of, you know, these would be good things to incorporate in your diet if you can. You've probably heard this before, but almonds are an incredible source of nutrition. You see that 1 ounce of serving, so 23 almonds, you know, a handful or so, you have 6 grams of protein, 4 grams of fiber, plus a lot of other vitamins and minerals, and also calcium again. There is some debate about the environmental impact of almonds because there's been such a huge increase in demand for almonds in recent years that more and more land, especially in California, which has like the perfect climate for growing almonds, more and more land is being converted to almond farms, and they use a lot of water and can involve a lot of pesticides. So that may be a concern to you, that if it's not the most environmentally friendly food, but when compared with animal sources of protein and nutrition, it certainly has less of an environmental impact and less water usage than, say, getting your protein from beef, for example. So maybe keep that in mind, and maybe, moderate your intake of almonds. I don't think that avoiding them altogether would be wise, but also maybe don't eat them every day, but just here and there add in a little bit of nutrition into your diet in a really tasty way. Walnuts, there's a little bit less of the environmental impact, although people tend to like the taste of walnuts a little bit less. But all the above nutrients for almonds are also found in walnuts. Plus, walnuts are, I think, the best source, plant-based source of omega-3 fatty acids. So remember flax, but also remember walnuts. And that is something that you're going to need to be sensitive to, particularly if you go entirely vegan, that you're going to need to find plant-based source of omega-3 for the health of your brain. Kind of funny that the walnut actually looks a little bit like a brain. It's kind of trying to tell us, hey, eat me and your brain is going to benefit, but it's actually true. So how to eat these, again, morning breakfast, that's usually where I have them, on my oats or on my cereal. You could roast them, like I suggested previously. If you do that with almonds and you add in a little bit of tahini or soy sauce as you're roasting it, it's a really good salty snack. Or you could make maple almonds, which are fairly easy to make. You can find lots of recipes online for how to do that. But basically you take almonds and you soak them kind of in maple syrup. You coat them and then you put it in the oven for 10-15 minutes, I think. And then the maple hardens around the almonds. You just have to be careful not to overcook that. And then you have a really tasty and nutritious snack and dessert. And again, that's the sort of thing that you could make up on a Sunday afternoon. Make a whole batch of that and just take it with you to Dawson or wherever you go. And you've got a much better and more nutritious and more economical snack than you could find if you were to get it out of a vending machine or from some restaurant. Finally, there's a couple foods that I wanted to sort of mention that I didn't have time to in the other foods to become friends with. I couldn't really find a place for these, but I think these are really great suggestions if you want to have a plant-based diet. You can find in most supermarkets veggie sausages, and there's two brands that you might want to look out for. One is called Gusta, which is a local Montreal brand. They make them up. They have a sort of a factory at the Jean Talon market. And if you're ever at Jean Talon, there's a storefront there where they can make you sandwiches that include their sausages there. And it is delicious. Like, anytime I go to Jean Talon, I make sure that I'm hungry and I make sure that I'm going to go there. They've got a breakfast sandwich. They've got lunch sandwiches. They've got all sorts of different sauces and vegetables to go along with it. And it's really, really good. Try it out for yourself. And you can get these sausages there or in other supermarkets, and then you can cut them up and cook them yourself, add them into your own meals. They are made from a base of wheat, so if you're sensitive to gluten or gluten intolerant, you're going to have to avoid that. And they are relatively high in sodium, as most processed foods are, but it can be the sort of thing that you might want to include every, once a week, twice a week, something like that. That's not going to kill you. And it's a really convenient, very healthy, very high protein food. And the other brand that I would recommend is Field Roast. Those are made in Washington State, so there's a little bit more shipping distance involved in them, but it's the same idea, and those come in other flavors. And my favorite is the apple potato flavor, I think it is. But that is really, really good. It's very tasty. And then the other food, the final food, is quinoa. You may have heard of quinoa before. It's been increasing in popularity. It's a crop that was originally domesticated in the Andes region in South America. and it's extremely nutritious for you as well. It's one of the few plant sources that actually contain, it's called a complete protein. It contains all the amino acids that your body needs. If you eat a relatively balanced diet, a plant-based diet, you're going to be getting all those amino acids in different sources, but quinoa has all the amino acids in one place, and very high in protein, fiber, iron, calcium, all these things, and easy to cook with. You can make up a big batch of it, and then you can put sauces on it, mix it with vegetables, make quinoa burgers. There's lots of recipes that are out there for you on the internet that will tell you how to cook with quinoa. So I hope that you enjoyed this, and I hope that now I've given you enough suggestions for how to have a wide variety of nutritious plant-based foods. And I really encourage you just to experiment with all this as much as possible. Stock your kitchen with all of this. See how many uses you can come up with, and see how it makes you feel. If you manage to go all plant-based for a week or two, see how that makes you feel. Or if you can't do that, then try just going for a day or two, and maybe substituting some of these great nutritious foods in for some of the things that you might be eating otherwise. So good luck with all your experimentation, and I wish you a long and happy and healthy life.